The studio lights blazed brightly, casting the entire set in a polished, almost theatrical glow. The audience erupted in applause as the band played its energetic tune. Stephen Colbert, seated at his desk with that trademark mischievous grin, leaned toward the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced with exaggerated enthusiasm, "please welcome Elon Musk." The audience cheered louder, some rising to their feet, clapping and whistling. Elon walked onto the stage, his stride confident but measured. He wore a sharp suit, his hands briefly tucked into his pockets, before he offered a restrained wave to the crowd. His expression was calm, though there was an unmistakable guardedness in his eyes, as though he was preparing for a challenge rather than a friendly chat. The cheers swelled as he shook Colbert's hand, then settled into the guest chair. The energy in the room was electric, not just excitement but curiosity. People weren't expecting a light-hearted segment. They knew this conversation had the potential to ignite. Colbert leaned back, shuffling his cue cards theatrically. He let the applause die down, then smirked knowingly. "So, Elon," he began, his voice dripping with both playfulness and provocation, "you've been making some controversial statements online again. Do you ever regret tweeting before thinking?" The audience chuckled, enjoying the jab. Elon didn't laugh. He kept his posture firm, shoulders straight, and looked directly at Colbert with a steady gaze. "I speak my mind," Elon said firmly, voice even and measured. "People don't have to agree with me, but honesty matters more than scripted PR." The audience reacted with a low murmur, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. Colbert raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by the seriousness of the reply. "Honesty or chaos?" Colbert shot back smoothly, his tone playful but edged with steel. "Because sometimes it feels like you're just stirring the pot." This time, the laughter in the room was louder, carrying the weight of Colbert's wit. Elon, however, didn't flinch. His jaw tightened just enough to betray the tension, but he remained silent, letting the audience's noise fade. The opening exchange felt less like casual banter and more like sparks from flint striking steel. Each word was deliberate, and each reaction hinted at the fire that might follow if either man pressed harder. The stage was set, the tension already simmering beneath the surface. The air in the studio had shifted. What began as playful banter now carried the edge of a genuine confrontation. The applause and laughter from earlier had dulled into a quiet murmur of anticipation. Colbert, never one to shy away from pushing, leaned forward in his chair, clasping the cue cards like a weapon, his voice cut through the silence. "You call yourself a free speech absolutist," he said, tone sharper now. "But don't you think that sometimes your words cause real harm? Spreading conspiracy theories, attacking people. Doesn't that cross the line?" The audience reacted audibly, a mix of gasps and a few claps, sensing the escalation. The cameras zoomed in on Elon, his face illuminated under the studio lights. He didn't fidget, didn't smile. Instead, he narrowed his eyes, his voice measured but laced with defiance. "The real harm," Elon countered, each word precise, "is when media outlets like yours pretend to be moral arbiters while pushing their own agenda. People deserve the truth, not polished lies." Gasps rippled through the audience like a wave. Some spectators exchanged glances, unsure whether to clap or stay silent. The tension was thick, pressing down on everyone in the room. Colbert's smile froze for a moment, but then it sharpened into something more cutting. He straightened in his seat, lips curling into a practiced retort. "So now you're saying I'm part of some grand media conspiracy?" Colbert fired back, the edge in his voice unmistakable. "That's pretty rich coming from a billionaire who manipulates markets with a single tweet." The audience erupted in laughter and applause at Colbert's punch, his comedic timing as sharp as ever. Yet beneath the laughter there was no mistaking the seriousness in his tone. The energy in the room had shifted again, humor layered over hostility. Elon leaned back in his chair, exuding composure but with a steeliness in his tone. "At least I'm not pretending to be a comedian while running political propaganda on late-night TV." The words landed like a strike. The studio fell into stunned silence, as if the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Even the band, half hidden in the background, seemed frozen. Colbert's face flushed slightly, his usual quick wit giving way to a flicker of irritation. The atmosphere snapped taut like a wire stretched to its breaking point. Everyone could feel it. This was no longer entertainment. It was a clash, raw and unscripted, teetering on the edge of explosion. The tension in the studio had reached its breaking point. The laughter, the gasps, the occasional applause, all of it had drained away, leaving an uneasy silence that hung in the air. Stephen Colbert, usually the unshakable master of the stage, set his cards down on the desk with a sharp flick, the gesture louder than it needed to be. His voice, no longer playful or teasing, carried a hard edge. "Elon, this is a comedy show," Colbert said firmly, his words biting. "If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be here." A murmur rolled through the audience. Some clapped in support of Colbert's jab, while others shifted in their seats, uncomfortable with how raw the exchange had become. Elon didn't blink. Slowly, deliberately, he rose from his chair, unbuttoning his jacket as though making a point in silence before speaking. "Maybe you should stop pretending your show is just jokes," Elon said evenly, his voice resonating in the hushed studio. "You use comedy as a weapon, and tonight it backfired." That line hit like a thunderclap. The audience roared, but it was a chaotic mix: cheers, laughter, even boos. Some people stood to clap, others shouted back. The room was alive with conflicting energy, half in support of Colbert, half in shock at Elon's boldness. Behind the cameras, security staff began to move subtly, inching closer toward the stage. The band had gone silent, their instruments resting in their laps. Colbert, flushed and visibly flustered, tried to wrest back control, leaning toward the camera with his hands spread across the desk. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said tightly, "we're going to cut this short." But Elon cut in, smirking as though he had been waiting for that very moment. "Exactly. When the truth gets uncomfortable, you cut it off. Classic." That single quip sent the audience into chaos, half laughing, half shouting. The noise drowned out the band as a stage manager rushed forward from the wings, gesturing firmly toward the exit. Elon raised his hands in mock surrender, still smiling faintly. "Guess free speech doesn't exist here either," he quipped as he turned and walked off stage. The audience's reaction was a storm of noise, applause, boos, laughter all colliding. Colbert, rattled but determined to end with authority, faced the camera with a forced smile. "We'll be right back after this." Unexpected break. The screen cut to commercials. The confrontation was over, but the moment, raw, unfiltered, unforgettable, was already destined to go viral.